Colorado head coach Deion Sanders has officially named his starting quarterback. What does this mean for the Buffaloes? Let's find out.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and thank you for making me your first listen of the day. Today's episode, we had to talk Kaidon Salter, right? We had to talk the quarterback battle, and it's a decision that I think a lot of people saw coming. I don't know if everyone wanted to see this coming, right? I think a lot of people have the mindset where it's like, oh, Julian Lewis is the 5-star recruit that they brought in. And it's like, yes. That being said, Julian Lewis is probably a year away from being ready, or at least a few more months or weeks away, right? So the Buffs went with Kaidon Salter, the Liberty transfer, who coming off a year that saw him throw for 1,800 yards, 15 touchdowns. Wasn't a bad year, right? It wasn't his 2023 season where he threw for 32 touchdowns and threw for, I think it was 3,000 yards and rushed for another 12 and won Conference USA MVP, right? He took a step back last year. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that he threw for 2,800 yards, 2,800 yards, 32 tuds, 6 picks, and 12 rushing touchdowns and 1,000 yards rushing. I think Kaidon Salter was the right pick, right? And I don't think Colorado brought Kaidon Salter in this offseason under the assumption that he wouldn't win the job, right? I think for the most part, it was his job to lose, and obviously he didn't lose it, right? Kaidon Salter is a veteran, multi-year starter. Colorado is trying to figure things out, right? They're going to have a new offensive line. They're going to have a new wide receiver core. They're going to have a new tight end, new play caller, or excuse me, same play caller, but new system, because obviously it's going to be, I guess, how do you say this? They're going to not be able to just force feed Travis Hunter and force feed LeJohntay Wester, right? They're going to have to change things up. They don't know what they have yet. They have an idea of what they think they have, but they don't necessarily have an idea. And so, or they don't have like a definitive, like, this is who we have. So Kaidon Salter, first of all, I love the decision. I've been calling for him to be the starter the entire offseason. Again, I don't think this is a profound take by any means, but Colorado has had issues running the ball. I actually tweeted over at Locked On Buffs, so go check it out there. Kaidon Salter had 3, I think it was. Let me double check my own tweet so that way I don't forget. But Kaidon Salter had 400-yard plus rushing games in 2023. Colorado hasn't had a 100-yard rusher in a game since 2022, right? They haven't had a run game. They've had a iffy offensive line at best, right? They've been one of the worst offensive line units in college football for the past 2 years. And because, sorry, I was reading a comment there. Realistically, Kaidon Salter has the arm, he has the experience, has the mobility. And I think his dual threat ability takes this offense to another level, and I think it makes everyone's job easier, right? I think using Kaidon Salter's strengths, like his ability to run outside the pocket, I saw Scott Proctor wrote this today, but Kaidon Salter last season was a magician, or excuse me, in 2023 was a magician in the play action game. He in play action passes during 2023, he had 24 touchdowns to 1 interception, completed 65% of his passes. So not bad there. This past season, I'll give you guys a breakdown of sort of what he's been able to do, what he's good at. When he's kept clean, obviously most quarterbacks do really well. Drop backs 69.7% of the time, 63.8 completion percentage, 14 touchdowns, 2 picks, right? Play action last year wasn't nearly as effective. Maybe that was a schematic change for Liberty, but he only had 3 touchdowns. No play action. He had 12 of his 15 touchdowns. Passing depth. He completed 13 of 51 passes for 20 plus yards down the field. He's really, really good in the intermediate from 10 to 19 yards. He completed 57.1% of his passes for 691 yards. And all 3 of his interceptions came on deep passes. So clearly when he's trying to force the issue, maybe things get a little bit complicated. Not shocking. It is worth noting that 3 of his interceptions last season were deep and over the middle of the field. So clearly he's got to keep the ball. He's got to protect the ball, got to keep it in safe hands. So I think Deion Sanders said it perfectly, right? We all knew if you kind of knew that anything about anything, right? He announced that Kaidon Salter was a starter, but he's like, you guys knew that already, right? And I think it was sort of this notion of like, we didn't bring him here. I don't know how much they paid him. We didn't pay him X amount of dollars, or we didn't promise him X amount of whatever for him to not start, right? And I think Julian Lewis knows that, part of his development is learning. And I think we're in an era where people just expect the shiny 5-star to start all the time. And that's not how it works, right? Kaidon Salter has a chance to lead Colorado to a Big 12 championship game. And I think he's going to cover up a lot of flaws like Shedeur did that this offensive unit has. And what those flaws are, we don't know yet. Is it that they don't have a good run game? Is it that this offensive line isn't the right solution, right? We've seen that before, right? We thought last year where they brought in Tyler Johnson, Khalil Benson, Yakiri Walker, and you name it. They brought Justin Mayers, and it was like, okay, this is a good unit. This unit's going to be the difference. And it was like, no, that unit was still bad. So we don't necessarily know what Colorado's weaknesses are. That being said, having Kaidon Salter, it changes everything for this offense, right? You could do quarterback design runs. You could run the RPO stuff. You can also make it certain that they can't really key in on a receiver, because it's like, hey, we have to pay attention to everyone, right? You can't just drop everyone because Kaidon Salter can take off and run. He makes you adapt. He makes you change how you're defending this Colorado defense, because Shedeur Sanders was mobile and he could run a little. That being said, Kaidon Salter is probably at worst the top 5 dual threat quarterback in the country. I'd say like guys like Avery Johnson are probably up there. Arch Manning, DJ Lagway. Who else? There's other names where I think he's in that mix, right? And Devin Dampier from Utah is supposed to be pretty good. So, Kaidon Salter changes things for Colorado, changes the landscape, and I think he really makes defenses' lives a bit harder. And I think if you're Colorado, that's what you want, right? You want to keep defenses on their toes, on their heels, and you don't want them to be able to key in on anything. And I think even though Colorado went 9-4 last season, they were predictable in the sense of like, we knew they were going to be throwing the ball to over the middle to LeJonte Wester, or we knew that they were going to be trying to get Travis Hunter the ball in the out routes and stuff like that, or down the field, right? We knew that was going to happen. This year, it feels like a whole new ball game. And I think the Kaidon Salter, granted, it's only going to be a season probably, unless he has some extra COVID year of eligibility, which I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. I feel like we're getting towards the end of that. He's going to be a one and done at Colorado. So he's playing for a lot, right? He's playing for his career, right? A good year at Colorado. Maybe he gets into some NFL consideration. A bad year, and maybe he gets replaced by Julian Lewis. When we come back, I'm going to talk about why it's not Julian Lewis's time just yet. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Oh, by the way, if you guys want a cool opportunity for a chance to take a survey and possibly get a $100 Amazon gift card, let me tell you a little something. We at Locked On, we want to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to Locked On Podcast today. LockedOnPodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's LockedOnPodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Okay, why not Julian Lewis? I think a lot of people are gonna. I kind of laid out the breakdown in the beginning, right? And I've said this all along about Julian Lewis. I think he's going to be a great quarterback. It wouldn't shock me if Colorado wins the Big 12 title or makes the college football playoff with him, assuming he sticks around, right? And I imagine Colorado has been quite transparent with him, right? Julian Lewis should be a senior in high school. He's 17 years old. And yes, we've seen 17-year-olds like Ryan Williams shine, right? But it's very rare that a early enrollee comes in and just is immediately nails, right? In fact, there's sort of, as I drop everything in front of me, there's sort of like this, I guess, precursor of like, it doesn't always work out, right? Let's hear some of the early enrollees that haven't worked out, right? It was, or I wouldn't say they haven't not worked out, but didn't really, I guess, didn't pan out as people had hoped. JT Daniels was one at USC. He was a guy that, was like, oh, cool. Like, he's going to be the guy at USC. He's going to bring USC back, modern day quarterback. High school football was too easy for him, right? It was too easy for him. He was going to be the next number one pick, and then he gets injured, right? You have Quinn Ewers, who's another one. You have a lot of guys where when they commit early, Miles Jackson is probably a name you're not familiar with. Early enrolled at Stanford and hasn't played at all. Right. I think he's behind the 8 ball there. Quinn Ewers wasn't ready at Ohio State, ended up transferring to Texas. Luckily he had a lot of buzz around him, which I think helped. That being said, I never thought Julian Lewis really should have started right away. Now, if you tell me that Julian Lewis is starting by week 7, it's like, okay, that means either Salter got injured or he just wasn't playing well enough. I think if you give Julian Lewis a few weeks to figure things out, great. That being said, Deion Sanders himself said, we want to get Julian Lewis to some game action. That being said, it depends on where we're at, right? It depends on the scenario, which means to me, Julian Lewis isn't going to be, I think it was being reported by On3, and I talked about this yesterday, that they were going to deploy this 2 quarterback system. And I wasn't really buying it. I just think that sort of opens you up to a lot of controversy that's unnecessary and really makes things complicated in the quarterback room. I think if Julian Lewis plays, it's either because Kaidon Salter's not getting it done and is injured, or Colorado's winning by a lot, right? Or they're losing by a lot. Hopefully not the latter. But it's just one of those things where Julian Lewis will have a full year to be in the system. He will have a full year to learn. He will have a full year to sort of understand the college speed. And then it's going to be his program, right? They brought in Kaidon Salter to help him. If Kaidon Salter ends up being benched and Julian Lewis will be ready. But the way, if you read about how Colorado's recruiting, and I've been told this a couple of times already, the way Colorado was recruiting, especially on offense, is like, hey, we have a 5-star stud in Julian Lewis, and we want you to be the guy that he's throwing the ball to. We want you to be the offensive lineman protecting his blind side. We want you to be this, right? The selling point for Colorado right now is Julian Lewis. And I don't know how it wouldn't be, right? Julian Lewis is viewed as a generational talent, right? And I think eventually he'll get his chance. And you don't put up the numbers he did in high school and not sort of generate buzz. But I still think you have to give him a learning ramp up. Like he needs to ramp up, if you will, right? And when they call on him, they call on him. But right now, it doesn't hurt to have him sort of sit and watch for a little bit. Threw for 10,000 career passing yards, did everything, right? He does everything, strong arm. I'm pretty sure during his state championship game or state championship run, they ended up losing this past year, was playing with an injured hand and he was still balling out, right? Julian Lewis, I think it's probably a little disappointing to not be the guy right away. I think that was sort of his goal when he was committing to any program, right? USC, Auburn, Colorado were the schools that were in the mix for him, Georgia. He wanted a clear path to the field. And I think Colorado still gives him that. And I still think him not starting right away is probably best for his long-term development, because I think too many times we throw these 5-star freshmen into the fire too soon. And it's like, oh, shoot, he wasn't ready. And now his confidence is shot. Now he's going viral on Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever you want to call it, whatever, all these apps, because people don't think he's good. It's like, okay, we just ruined his confidence and ruined his joy for football because we were hoping he'd be the guy right away. And so I think Julian Lewis will have his turn. I fully expect to see him at some point, right? I don't know when or why, but I do think we'll see Julian Lewis at least get some action somewhere down the road. Heck, we should see him next week, right? Colorado plays Delaware. That'd probably be the best game for him to get in some action, just sort of pick apart a defense that it isn't Colorado's. And yeah, I think Juju Lewis will learn a lot from Kaidon Salter, and I think he'll learn a lot by it's a little adversity, right? Arch Manning talked about it the other day, and I thought it was interesting. He said it was hard for him at times to sit behind Quinn Ewers, but he said it was also necessary because he's like, I got to learn, right? So it's one of those things where I think it'll pay off for Juju. We'll just have to wait and see if he's able to take advantage of the opportunity to learn behind one of college football's most experienced and best quarterbacks. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Drelon Miller making the switch to running back. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boosted blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that could take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. You can even read the real customer reviews on their site. So it's helping a lot of people feel more confident and persistent in the moment, if you know what I mean. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We got some fun stuff planned this season. Former Colorado Buffalo, not Drelon Miller. That's who we're going to be talking about. Former Buff, Jordan Dominic, is going to be coming on the show after each game, and we're going to be chopping it up about what went right, what went wrong. We're going to hopefully do some film breakdown stuff. It's going to be fun. You guys won't want to miss that. Drelon Miller, projected slot receiver for the Buffs this year, is told the media today, hey, I'm taking some snaps at running back. And I think this is out of necessity. I think Colorado's running back room is a little bit thin, a little bit undersized, and they need someone who could consistently make plays. Now, Drelon Miller, by all intents and purposes, had always been described as a Deebo Samuel type. He's built, 6'1", 200 pounds, came into Colorado at 5'11", 205, right? So he's got the size to sort of be used in this manner. Does a little bit of everything. As a senior, he had 50 catches for 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns, and he also rushed for 237 yards on 9.9 yards per carry. So does a bit of everything. Rushed for 350 yards his junior season and ran for 171 yards his sophomore season. He's a guy that I think a lot of people thought were going to start in the slot. That being said, in the recent Well Off Media video, a lot of the combinations that I was seeing were Sincere Brown, Joseph Williams, Drelon Miller. We've been seeing a lot of Isaiah Harge, which I still think Isaiah Harge at running back would be a great move, but for whatever reason, they do not agree. So Drelon Miller may get his opportunity there. He's a guy that last season played in recorded a stat in 5 games. Had his best game was against Utah. So he had 6 catches for 108 yards, 18 yards per catch, 1 touchdown, a long of 49 yards. Against Kansas, he had 5 for 44 and a touchdown, a long of 19. He's physical. He's athletic. He's smart. You could use him in a variety of ways. Just because he says he's been taking snaps at running back doesn't mean he's going to be the full every down back, right? They still have DeKalen Taylor, who I think should be getting around 10 to 12 touches a game just based off of speed and elusiveness and just big playability. They also have Micah Welch, who played pretty well last season before he was banged up. I think this could be a prime opportunity for him to take hold of that starting job. And Dallin Hayden's out with an injury. We don't know how long. Simeon Price is a guy that really hasn't hit anywhere, but he's a physical back. And I think maybe they could use him in certain scenarios. I just don't really know really how they plan to use this running back room. And I think we'll find out. They did say they plan to run the ball a lot. And Simeon Price is 6'2", 215. So Colorado's planning to run the ball. I think the Dallin Hayden injury really threw a wrench in things because it's like, oh shoot, we're already limited on depth. And I think running back is an important position in college football because like if you could run the ball successfully, it changes everything for you. And last year, Colorado just running the ball a few times a game would have changed a lot for them. They were ranked dead last in college football in rushing offense. Rushing attempts wise weren't that impressive either. They didn't try it. They didn't commit to it. Now, a lot of people will say this is because Shedeur was there and because they wanted to put him on display. I just think it was more so a combination of the offensive line not being good, the running backs being hit in the backfield every handoff, right? It wasn't a good mix. Now, this year, the offensive line should be better. I expect a better run game. And Draylon Miller at running back could open up a new element, right? Maybe they use him like Deebo Samuel, right? When Deebo Samuel was at his best, the 49ers were using him in a lot of jet sweeps. They were just getting him the ball in open space, letting him build a full head of steam. And I think that's what Draylon Miller would thrive in. He's built very similarly to Deebo Samuel. He's stockier, thicker, and getting him the ball doesn't seem like a bad idea. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, how that plays out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available over each podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Tomorrow, we have a Georgia Tech insider joining the show to discuss the Buffs, the Yellow Jackets, the trash talk, and everything in between. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.